Yo, what the fuck is good? Welcome back to another build video. This time, we're covering the newest shit, the freshest shit. This shit's probably gonna be meta for a while type shit. Subclassing. Let's jump right into it, man. Let's check it out, what we got going on. Now, this is an open world build. Towards the end of the video, I will be going over additional options for sets, champion points, different mythics, different skill lines for different purposes. You know, I'll be going over some flex options, alright? But this is what I've been using for the first, what is it, like day 5 now? For the first 5 days of subclassing. This is what I've been using. All the clips you just saw are in like, you know, 2, maybe 3 days worth of gameplay. So it's good. Subclassing feels good. There's a ton of damage right now. Without any further ado, let's get right into it. So, starting off with our class, I am a base class Nightblade. This is kind of up to personal preference. You could go a few different ways depending on what you want to do. But I went base class Nightblade, and I'd say Warden is your second best choice. And the only reason I say that is the main class matters for your class mastery. Because we're using 3 different skill lines here from 3 different classes. So, let's check it out. Like I said, I'm a Nightblade. Our skill lines are Assassination, Stormcalling, Animal Companions. Okay. We are a Khajiit. See, I got my little tail. We want as much crit damage as we can get. Mundus, we got Shadow Mundus. Character sheet, boon, the Shadow. For food, we're going to be using recovery food, Jewels of Misrule, or Zorga's Bear Haunch. I got the Jewels of Misrule on right now because they are not 10k a pop like Zorga's Bear Haunch. See, I got some Bear Haunch, but they just sit here, man. I don't need that shit. All right. So, we got all that covered, and I'm gonna use tri-stat pots. Sustain on this is pretty good. You have good recovery. You got the stamnetch to get your stamina back, and this is a primarily stamina focused build. So, moving on to the sets. Front bar, I am rocking Null Arca Maces. I don't have them perfected. If you have them perfected, you know, from the veteran trial, even better. Use the perfected ones. That's awesome. Back bar, Rallying Cry. Shocker, I know. I know, is it? Shocker. Okay. Balorgs. For our armor weights, we are doing 3 heavy, 1 light, and 3 medium. Okay. I've also ran 2 heavy, 4 medium, 1 light. I really like the 3 heavy in open world. There is so much fucking damage that everybody's putting out right now. And I have a feeling once some people see this video and start putting this build on, it's gonna be even fucking worse, bro. Because this build has AoE burst damage, single target burst damage, and right now, probably about 80% of the people that I fight, they just get deleted instantly, full health from 1 global cooldown. In an AoE, right, without even using a single target skill type shit. It's crazy. Back to our weapons real quick. 1 Nerdhone, 1 Sharpen. I feel like those traits are pretty important. Rallying Cry Staff, you want to go defending with a Berserker enchant on the back, just to proc it if you heavy attack for Magicka or whatever. Absorb Stam, honestly, you could probably replace this with Shock since you get guaranteed Sunder off of Surprise Attack. I use Null Arca on some builds that don't use Surprise Attack as a spammable, or at least I did before subclassing. So that's kind of why I had the Absorb Stam to proc Sunder on enemies, which is minor breach and 100 weapon and spell damage to you. And the next one is Disease. So ideally on this class, with Surprise Attack as a spammable, you're going to want to change this Absorb Stamina enchantment to a Shock enchantment, and you'll be rocking Shock and Disease. What those enchantments do is they have a 20% chance to proc every time you light attack. Shock will give minor vulnerability to your target, which is 5% more damage taken. And disease damage procs minor defile, which is 8% less healing. I don't know if it's healing done or healing taken. I think it's less healing taken. So, pretty good combination of stuff to use when you're fighting people. Moving on to our armor sets, obviously Balorg we're using as a monster set. I have a medium shoulder on right now, but ideally you would want a heavy head, heavy chest, heavy shoulder. We got the Rallying Cry waist. We got Null Arca, Null Arca, Null Arca for the bottom 3 pieces. And there's so much crit damage right now. Everyone's rocking this new Mythic and building into crit and you know, picking up Assassination. Highly recommend you get as many pieces of Impenetrable as possible. And Rallying Cry is super, super valuable. Super valuable. Moving on to the jewelry. We got Rallying Cry jewelry and Monomyth Reforged, the new Mythic. Now, if you didn't want to cough up $45 for a fucking, you know, fancy ring on a video game, that's cool. There's definitely some other options for you. Mark and Ring of Majesty is very good. The Saint and Seducer necklace is very good. Death Dealer's Fate is very good. All these mythics are very good for this build, okay? Don't feel like you have to use this mythic, but I mean, it's fucking insane, guys. I mean, this shit is bonkers how good this mythic is. It offers so much. On your front bar, you get Major Force. Even if this mythic didn't give shit else besides Major Force, I would still use it. So we get Major Force, which is 20% crit damage. Minor Berserk, which is redundant with our Camo Hunter buff. That's okay. Minor Vulnerability. So we take a little bit more damage on our front bar, which is okay. If you're super outnumbered, this build has insane burst. You only have to be on your front bar for like 3 seconds. Drop your Deep Fissure, Contingency, Donnie, get back to your back bar and get the healing. You know what I mean? You need to be on your front bar for 3 seconds tops, and you have a good burst window just like that. Okay. On the back bar, it's going to give Major Protection, which is... I mean, like, what the fuck? Minor Vitality. Major Protection makes you take 10% less damage. Minor Vitality makes you take 8% more healing. You don't do 8% more healing, but you take 8% more healing. Like, when you get healed, it's 8% more from any source, including other players. Okay. And Minor Timidity. Now, this is the opposite of Minor Heroism, which heroism generates you ultimate. Timidity makes you lose ultimate. You lose 1.5 ultimate every 1.5 seconds. Does it say it right here? No, it doesn't. But I think you lose 1.5 ultimate every 1.5 seconds. Some shit like that. As long as you're light attacking and in combat, you're not really like losing ultimate at all. Because when you light attack, you gain 3 ultimate per second. Or every 2 seconds. I don't know exactly the math. Just, you know, you gain ultimate when you light attack. That's the idea. As long as you're light attacking in combat, taking damage, you're not really going to notice the ultimate loss at all. Okay, so that is our gear setup. Now, let's go over the skills one more time. Assassination, Storm Calling, Animal Companions. Now, we're a base Nightblade. So, Assassination. This is, like, just one of the strongest offensive skill lines. And in a way, all of the skill lines we have are offensive. Storm Calling has some really good offensive passives. Look, it even gives us a Magicka and Stamina Recovery. But increases your physical and shock damage by 5%. Increases your damage done against enemies by 1% for every 10% current health they have. So, if they have 100% of their health, we automatically do, with all of our abilities, 10% more damage to them. And this is a huge, huge, huge buff to our damage when we're trying to just burst somebody down from full health. That's how you see me hitting people for, you know, 19, 20,000 Dawnbreakers, 20,000 Spec Bows. And increase your weapon and spell damage by 108 for each sorcerer ability slotted. Unfortunately, we only get the weapon and spell damage on our back bar, the way I have it set up here. You could probably change some skills around if you want, but this is definitely like a convenience thing. Having the weapon and spell damage on your back bar also buffs your healing a bit, so it's not completely gone to waste, okay? Assassination passives, very strong. You get a fucking metric shitload of crit chance. You get, look at that, more crit chance. And you get some critical damage. And also, more crit chance. Now, Animal Companions gives us a little bit of ulti-gen, not too crazy. 20% magicka and stamina recovery, just for having one of these abilities slotted. And I believe this translates to both bars, so let's test it out real quick. Let's go to our character sheet. Let's look at my resistance just standing here unbuffed. 1500 stamina recovery, 1300 magicka on my front bar. Well, you know what? It does apply on both, because I have Deep Fissure and Bullnetch, front bar, back bar. So, disregard everything I said. You get 20% more magicka and stamina recovery on both bars. And the last one, Advanced Species, increase your critical damage by 5% for each Animal Companion ability slotted. Now, I know it's only 5% for having Deep Fissure, but it's something. It adds to your immense amount of critical damage. And I'll show you guys fully buffed what our stats look like here in just a moment. But first, let's go through our actual skill bars. Number 1, Camouflage Hunter. When we are stacking this much critical damage, you definitely want to have 100% uptime on Major Savagery and Prophecy, which is a critical chance. Right, so if you look at our stat sheet here, character sheet, I'm sitting at 45% weapon and spell critical, just standing here completely unbuffed, not in combat, not getting the minor passive from the assassination skill line. I mean, this shit goes up to well beyond 50%. And there's another class mastery that we're using on our healing soul on the back bar, which is going to give us even more crit chance under certain circumstances that I will be explaining here when we get to that part. But my point is, we're stacking a ton of crit chance and crit damage with this build. So, Camo Hunter, you want this, okay? You also have the option of doing something like putting Major Savagery and Prophecy on your Contingency and losing Minor Force. Maybe you think you have too much crit damage. I don't know who the fuck would think that, but maybe, okay? You also have the option of putting that Major Prophecy and Savagery on your Contingency here, but the problem is that buff only lasts for 10 seconds, okay? It's a major buff versus this minor force buff lasts for 20 seconds because it's a minor buff, okay? So having 10 seconds of Major Savagery and Prophecy uptime, not that good in my opinion, okay? So we want Camo Hunter. It's also going to give us a little bit of extra weapon and spell damage via the Slayer passive here under Fighter's Guild. See, Slayer, increase your weapon and spell damage by 3% for each Fighter's Guild ability slotted. So we have 6% more weapon and spell damage from Camo Hunter and Dawnbreaker as our ultimate abilities, having those two slotted, okay? Moving forward, Deep Fissure. This, I mean, this skill is just so fucking good, okay? You want to pick this up pretty much for everything. It's a delayed burst ability, it does massive damage, and it applies major and minor breach to the enemies. Now we also get minor breach from our spammable, which is surprise attack, but this can hit a ton of people at once in an AoE. Okay, so keep that in mind when you're fighting a ton of people. You can debuff all of them and just burst them all the fuck down like you saw me do in the beginning of the video. Surprise attack. This is our Nightblade spammable. Deals physical damage, applying the Sundered status effect. It also sets them off balance. That is important to know when you're picking your champion points. I think it's more important in like a dueling situation than it is in open world. The champion point I'm talking about is called Exploiter. Makes you do 10% more damage to off-balance targets. Like I said, I don't think it's very consistent, and you still have to make sure you're doing consistent damage in an AoE, just with the nature of open world and the way Cyrodiil is right now. Tons of groups, tons of healers. To the next skill, Bloody Contingency. This is another layer of delayed burst. So it's going to do bleed damage. The reason I picked bleed is it's got a very minimal damage advantage versus the other choices that you can put on here. I know a lot of people tend to choose fire because they're like, oh, people are vampires, they'll take more fire damage. To be honest, ever since Undeath passive was nerfed on vampires, noticed less and less people using vampire. Myself included. I don't put vampire in hardly any of my builds now, unless I'm using cloak to buff my damage. And honestly, that's pretty much it. So, the reason I do bleed is because if we look here at our character sheet, notice how our spell resistance, which fire is spell damage, and our spell damage is slightly higher than our physical damage. Now this is because in the light armor passives here, let me show you guys real quick. Light armor passives. Light armor, light armor, light armor. Spell warding. Increases your spell resistance by 726 for each piece of light armor equipped. So, if someone is in mostly light armor, I'm only in 1 light armor, but if someone was wearing 4, they'd have almost 3,000 more spell resistance than they would physical resistance. Now, bleed contingency is physical damage, and it still only costs magicka. Normally with scribing, when you pick a physical focus script, it'll make the skill cost stamina. For some reason, this bleed contingency is a very weird exception, and it doesn't do that. It still costs magicka, and you're able to do physical damage, martial damage, whatever you want to call it. Very cool, very cool. Next on the scripts, the signature script is going to be Gladiator's Tenacity. Reduces damage taken by 8% for 7 seconds. Again, super important to be tanky in this meta. There are so many people using delayed burst combos like this that can just fucking one-shot you. If you're not block tapping with a significant amount of damage mitigation on your build, you're just gonna fold like a fucking lawn chair, okay? And last but not least, we got Minor Force, so we can stack even more critical damage. Merciless Resolve, this is the harder hitting of the 2 morphs. I guess you could use the stamina morph if you want to, if you don't plan on using the bow proc and you just want the passive weapon and spell damage. The stamina morph of this will give you 370 weapon and spell damage stacked up fully, so with 10 stacks. The magicka morph gives 300, so it's a pretty insignificant amount, and the magicka morph hits significantly harder, okay? Dawnbreaker of Smiting is going to be our ultimate of choice on the front bar. Don't use Flawless Dawnbreaker in PvP. It's bad, okay? Use Dawnbreaker of Smiting. You can also use Incapacitating Strike from the Assassination skill tree, which it's very hard, but I think it's more of like a dueling type thing. Like you want to slot this when you're like 1v1ing. If you're truly trying to like 1vx, I mean it's so invaluable to have Deep Fissure, Contingency, and Dawnbreaker, and you cast them in that order, and I mean you could just nuke an entire group of people. So that's our front bar. Moving on to the back bar, we've got our basic solo 1vx Resolving Vigor. This is one of the strongest heals over time in the game. Heals you for a ton of health over the course of 5 seconds. You want to cast this a lot, and you want to make sure the minor resolve is active all the time. It's going to give you a good amount of extra physical and spell resistance. Here we have our burst heal, which is Healing Soul. You need the Healing Soul, okay? You have no other option to burst heal with the subclasses we're picking here if you don't use Healing Soul. Again, at the end of the video, I'll go over some more flex options for newer players, players that might not have all these things. Bear with me and we'll get there. Okay, Healing Soul. So, your focus script is going to be, guess what? Healing. Your signature script, that's the word I'm looking for. Signature script is going to be class mastery. So, you're going to restore magicka and stamina if your target was at or above 50% health. So that's great, because Healing Soul costs a lot. 4,500 magicka almost. So getting those resources back when we cast it is huge. Okay. Now, the second part of this is increase your critical chance by 10% for 5 seconds if your target health was below 50%. It's pretty hard to like control this proc, but when it comes down to critical healing, I mean, you see some absolutely insane numbers out of this, along with our third script, the Vitality script. So it's going to give us major Vitality, increasing healing received and damage deal strength by 12%. So, you know, say you're below 50% health. That's usually when you're going to be casting your burst heal anyway. You're below 50% health, and then, oh, you take another bit of damage. So now you have that extra 10% critical damage, critical chance, as well as major Vitality. That second heal, I mean, you're gonna see like 20k crit heals off this thing. It's fucking wicked, dude. Moving on, Hurricane. This skill is a lot. It does so many things. It gives you Major Resolve, which is super important. You need Major Resolve in Cyrodiil, or else you're not going to survive. Major and Minor Resolve you should have on every single build. Unless you're in a group getting those things from other sources, okay? That's beyond the point. This skill does damage in an area of effect around you, and it increases in damage as the timer goes down. So it gets stronger, and it also expands in range. Crazy skill. Also gives you Minor Expedition, which increases your movement speed by 15%. So this build on the back bar plays a lot like a traditional Stamp Sword would have, except now we don't only rely on Dark Exchange or Dark Conversion for fucking shitty ass burst heal. We have a real big dog burst heal now, Healing Soul. Next skill we got Bullnetch. This is going to give us stamina over time. Now this stamina actually comes back to you even while you're sprinting and blocking. It's not considered stamina recovery, it just directly restores it to your bar no matter what's going on. Very good skill. Do not use the Mag Netch. Use the Stam Netch, it's better. Okay? It also gives Major Brutality and Sorcery, which you need on every build. Super important to have this, or else you're not going to do any damage. And if that wasn't enough, it's free to cast. And if that's not enough, every 5 seconds the Netch removes one negative effect from you. You can actually spam this and remove a negative effect every time you recast the skill. And if no negative effects are removed, you instead increase your damage done by 5% for 5 seconds. Now that 5%, it's not a named buff. It's not Minor Berserk, it's nothing like that. It's a unique 5% buff. So you have that on top of the Minor Berserk from Camo Hunter, whatever other percent damage you're stacking. There is so much potential for big damage here. Now, our last skill on our back bar, Streak. This skill is also so loaded, and it's why I say this build plays a lot like a traditional Stamina Sorcerer. Huge burst, crazy mobility, and it's super disruptive. I mean, just being able to hurricane around everywhere with that insane amount of movement speed, and then having Streak to streak through people. It's an AoE stun. It does a minimal amount of damage, but it's an unblockable AoE stun. I mean, that's just so fucking valuable to have, especially when you're outnumbered, to help your teammates and things like that. Last but not least, we have Temporal Guard. This is just going to give us minor protection on our back bar, which is going to stack with the major protection that we're getting from the Monomyth Reforged Mythic on our back bar. So we have a natural 15%, 100% uptime on the 15% damage reduction on our back bar. It's huge, so we're pretty tanky, okay? So we're building to do a ton of damage on our front bar. We're a little bit squishier on our front bar due to the nature of the Mythic, but we're much tankier on our back. So keep all of that in mind. Let's see, what am I missing here? I am missing champion points. Let's talk about some champion points. Now keep in mind, this is open world champion points. We're going pretty defense heavy here. We already do so much damage. We don't need to have full offensive CP. I think having full offensive CP in Cyrodiil is fucking stupid, quite frankly. Now, we're going to start with Fighting Finesse, Focus Mending, Master at Arms, and Ironclad. Focus Mending is going to buff every single one of our heals. I know we only have like 2 heals, but you also heal off of the Spec Bow. The 2 heals we have are Resolving Vigor and Healing Soul, obviously. You can also heal off of a Spec Bow if you hit it in melee range, so that's pretty cool. Fighting Finesse is critical damage and healing, so it's sort of hybrid. It's mostly for the critical damage, but the critical healing is pretty cool to have too. Increased damage done with direct damage attacks by 3% per stage. Pretty much all of our damage is direct damage. Our only damage over time is going to be Hurricane, right? We don't have like elemental susceptibility on our bar or really any sort of dots. So all of our damage is direct damage. It's all going to be buffed by Master at Arms. And we have Ironclad as another defensive CP. 6% damage reduction against direct damage attacks. Because again, a lot of people are going to be taking things like Blast Bones, Deep Fissure, Assassination. It's a lot of direct damage burst going on with this subclassing shit. It's definitely 1,000,000,000%. It's a burst meta once again. There was a little while there when dots got buffed and people were on these like crazy dot builds, like zerging you down and shit. I mean, it's just a crazy burst meta right now, as you guys saw from the first few clips in the beginning. Moving on to the red CP, we got Celerity, Survival Instincts, Pain's Refuge, and Fortified. These are my go-to red CP for just about everything. Every class. For open world, these top 3 here, Celerity, Survival Instincts, and Pain's Refuge, like you never want to take those off. Like for open world, that is just the best. Best in slot. It's the shit, okay? Fortified, let me explain my reasoning behind this, because I'm sure people are going to say like, oh, but this one's better, it does more. Okay, so everything in this game isn't about like numbers. It's not necessarily a numbers game. So Fortified, it just gives us 1700 armor flat all the time. 100% uptime. I don't have to do anything to proc it. I don't even have to think about it, right? It's a convenience thing. Now the way damage mitigation works in this game, I believe if I remember correctly, about 600 armor is equivalent to 1% damage reduction overall. So this 1700 armor is 3% damage reduction all the time that I don't have to think about. In comparison to something like Relentlessness is popular in dueling. Being stunned or feared causes you to gain major protection for 3 seconds, reducing damage taken by 10%. Do I want that 10% damage reduction for 3 seconds? Or do I want 3% damage reduction all the time? It's something that you kind of have to make up your mind about on your own. If you're using Monomyth Reforged, don't put Relentlessness CP on, because we already have major protection on our back bar, okay? So, you know, maybe if you don't want to use Fortified, you could use something like a Juggernaut. While under the effects of crowd control immunity, you take 1% less damage per stage, so it's 5% less damage taken. But again, why would I have to limit myself to being under crowd control immunity to get 5%, 2% more damage reduction than Fortified gives all the time? So I think overall, Fortified, Boundless Vitality, Sustain by Suffering if you're having sustain issues. Those are your like top 3 flex options for that 4th spot. Kind of depends on your playstyle. But like I said, those top 3, man, Pain's Refuge, Survival Instinct, Celerity, you just gotta have them. Been yapping for too long. Let me take a drink of water. It's summer, guys. It's hot out. Make sure y'all fucking stay hydrated. So let's talk about some other like flex options for sets and stuff like that. I think it's about that time. I've covered just about everything on the build. If you kind of missed like when I was talking about the burst combo, it's super simple. So you just want to fucking Deep Fissure, Contingency, hit your Dawnbreaker or your surprise attack. And that shit'll just nuke like even not even hitting your Dawny and just surprise attacking. If you hit all that shit at the same time on one person, it'll take out like 80% of their health bar for most people. Like it's actually just fucking stupid. So let's talk about some flex options. I'm highly aware that Null Arca is a whole ass trial set and a lot of people aren't gonna have access to this. I got this by just like finding random groups in Group Finder. Like I don't do like PvE that much. I basically just play the game to fucking murk people in Cyrodiil. So there's a lot of friendly people in the activity finder in the game. This set just got buffed this patch. Does like 8% more damage and has like a lower cooldown. I don't know what the fuck they were thinking when they did that. I've seen this set proc hit for like 14,000 crits. You know what I mean? Like it's just absolutely stupid. So highly recommend farming out this set. Get in Lucent Citadel. Go get this shit, okay? But if you really are insisting on not getting this, some good sets to replace this with front bar are going to be the following in the following order. So the next best is going to be Tarnished Nightmare. This comes from Bedlam Vale. It's a dungeon, 4-man dungeon, much easier to get. It's very short. Get a few friends together, go farm out Tarnished Nightmare, be everyone's worst nightmare. Next, probably something like Essence Thief is going to be really good. I was even using Essence Thief in one of the 1v3 clips at the beginning. Just not a huge fan of the minigame, and you don't really need the extra sustain on this build with how much recovery you get. When you hit a potion, you're sitting at like almost 2,000 of both recoveries, right? So it's a lot of recovery. Don't really feel like you need Essence Thief. 10% extra damage is cool, but you know, you could also use something like Order's Wrath, which is craftable, super accessible for a lot of people on the front bar. Also a great option. Back bar, I would really just stick with Rallying Cry. If you have someone else in your group that has Rallying Cry and you want to wear something else, I guess you could wear something like Olarime for Major Courage, which brings me to my next flex option. You can actually swap out Stormcalling for, let's see, your Templar. You can swap it out for this one called Restoring Light. And what you can do is, you can have Rune Focus, and this is going to replace Hurricane. This is going to give you your Major Resolve buff, and it's also going to heal you while you're standing in it, and outside of it, but when you're standing in it, it's going to heal you for considerably more. So you're going to take the Stamina Rune, and you're going to take the Magicka Netch. That way you're getting a constant flow of both resources back. You're getting the stamina back from the rune, you're getting the magicka back from the netch. And instead of streak, you're going to put race against time, and you can put something else on your contingency affix script, like I'm just kind of winging this, guys, just bear with me. Scribing Ulfzil's contingency. So you could probably put on something like vulnerability or intellect and endurance for even more. Now just bear in mind that when you replace Stormcalling with Restoring Light is all defensive passives. You're sacrificing the extremely strong offensive passives that you're getting with Stormcalling. You're replacing them with more defensive ones. So if you find yourself having trouble surviving in open world, you know, maybe this might be the way for you to go. You won't have the kind of escape option from Streak, but you'll still be pretty quick having the major expedition from Race Against Time in exchange. You'll see, looking at these passives, we get a little bit of ulti gen, resurrection speed, we get minor mending, which is pretty good, and 10% block mitigation, and increase healing done by up to 6% in proportion to the severity of the target's wounds. So I think for dueling, this is probably kind of the way to go, and you would honestly not even use Race Against Time. You would put instead of Hurricane here, you would put the Rune, and then instead of Streak, you would put the Extended Ritual, the Purify, and you kind of just stand in your Rune and your Ritual, and you just go crazy on whoever you're fighting and just hope you don't get burst down. Just kind of block a lot. And for dueling CP, I would go with, instead of Focus Mending, I would put on Exploiter for more damage. Exploiter is located right here on the guy's elbow under Extended Might. It's right over here. Exploiter. So, increase your damage done against off-balance enemies by 10% per stage. And we're applying off-balance to enemies with Surprise Attack. So in a duel, it's very strong, it's a lot of extra damage, and losing Focus Mending, you're kind of making up for it by having the Restoring Light passive to give you more healing based on your wounds, yada yada yada. That's kind of my 2 cents on this build, and I don't know if I already mentioned it, but if you don't have the Mythic, Mark and Ring, Death Dealers, Saint and Seducer are all great options for open world. Sea Serpent is very good for dueling as well. I just don't recommend it for open world. It slows you down way too much, and it's going to get you killed more often than not by not giving you the mobility that you need to get to a safe spot. That's kind of my end-all, be-all meta subclassing build guide. This is my favorite build that I've ever used. It has insane mobility, very good survivability because of that mobility if you know how to utilize it correctly. And it has the absolute craziest burst damage of any build I've ever played. And not to mention the resource sustain is pretty fantastic for the amount of skills that we're casting and the amount of defense that we have to do. It's just so good. Such a good combination and balance of a little bit of everything. It's what you need in Cyrodiil. But I mean, it's truly just such high damage. Such high damage. And just to check out our stats here, let me travel to someone's house that has a test dummy so we can check out our stats. Right over here. Let's buff up. Check our defensive stats first. So with Minor Resolve and Major Resolve, we've got 28,000 spell, 27,000 physical, and remember we've got Major and Minor protection on the back bar, which equates to 15% damage reduction. So this is a significant amount of defenses for what we're trying to do here. Now let's check our offensive stats. Put my Netch up, get Minor Force off my Contingency. So we've got 6,000 physical penetration. We've got 5.3k weapon and spell damage. It's honestly not that great. But see, we've got 51% weapon critical from proccing our Nightblade passive off of Assassination. And here's the craziest part. Let's proc that up again. Craziest part is advanced stats. We've got 84% critical damage. So that's how we're able to hit, you know, just 20,000 Dawnbreakers, and fucking 14k null arca procs, 20k bows. I mean, it's just wicked damage, guys. So anyway, this has been Araphel. I hope you guys have enjoyed listening to me yap for 40 minutes straight. Enjoy subclassing. Feel free to leave a comment if you feel like there's something, you know, better you could change about the build, something that you like that I didn't mention. I always like hearing people's options. and different opinions on the matter. So, again, thanks for watching. Check it out, and I'll see you out there.